Ice Rink Cave Incident. On May 25, 2003, Chris Molyneux planned a cave trip. Chris was 36 years old and had explored caves before. He wanted to take his family to Ice Rink Cave in Washington. Chris brought his wife Michelle and their 3 children. They drove to the mountains in their car. Chris parked the car about 200 yards from the cave entrance. They found a dark opening in the ground. Chris was not sure if this was the right entrance to Ice Rink Cave. He decided to go inside alone first to check if it was safe. The cave entrance got smaller as he went deeper underground. After 100 feet, Chris found a tiny crawlway that was only 18 inches high. He looked at his cave map with his headlamp. Chris thought the crawlway would lead to the main part of the cave. He crawled through the tight space. When he came out, he was in a bigger passage. Chris started walking. He walked for a long time but could not find the main part. Chris found rocks that had fallen from the ceiling. This was not shown on his map. He climbed over the rocks and kept walking. Chris couldn't find the main part. He decided to go back. Chris turned around and walked back the way he came. Finally, Chris reached what looked like the crawlway, but it was completely blocked with dirt and rocks. Chris realized he was lost. Chris turned back and walked the way he came. He walked for a long time again. Then he found another blocked entrance that looked exactly the same. This confused Chris because there should only be one blocked entrance. To test something, Chris made a big X in the dirt. He walked in the opposite direction and counted his steps. After 400 steps, his headlamp showed the same X in the dirt. Chris realized he was trapped in a circle. The cave passage went in a loop with no way out. Chris walked around the loop many times. He had been underground for over an hour. He tore pieces of his map and left them at different spots. This helped him know where he had already looked. After 5 hours, Chris was getting very scared. He was tired, thirsty, and could not think clearly. Chris started to panic. Chris thought about his children waiting outside. This gave him strength to keep trying. Chris went back to the blocked entrance and searched again. This time he stayed very close to the wall. He looked at every inch of the wall. 50 feet from the blocked entrance, Chris saw something different. There it was, the crawlway. It was hidden behind a rock and very hard to see. Chris had walked past it many times without noticing. He crawled through the opening as fast as he could. A few minutes later, Chris came out into the sunlight. Chris had been underground for 6 hours. Killiansburg Cave Incident. In June 1992, 5 boys went to explore a cave in West Virginia. The cave was called Killiansburg Cave. Brian Quintanilla was 13 years old. He was curious and liked to explore. While the other boys stayed in the main part of the cave, Brian found a narrow passage. The passage was very tight. It was only as wide as his shoulders. Brian thought it might be a secret shortcut. He decided to crawl through it. The passage was shaped like the letter L with a sharp bend in the middle. Brian squeezed into the passage. The rocks pressed against his shoulders and hips. When he reached the bend, he had to twist his body in a painful way. He had to bend his knees backward to fit through. Brian pushed through the tight spot. At first, he felt happy that he made it, but then he realized something was very wrong. He was stuck. He could not move backward. The rocks held him tight like a trap. The other boys noticed Brian was missing. They called his name and looked everywhere. Finally, they heard his voice calling back. They found the passage where he was stuck. They could only see his legs sticking out. The boys tried to pull Brian out by his legs. Nothing worked. Brian was in a lot of pain. The scout leader was Brian's mother. She rushed to help her son. She crawled as close as she could to the passage. Brian's mother knew what they had to do. Brian would have to twist his body backward the same way he went in. It would hurt, but it was the only way to get him out. She grabbed his legs and told him to start moving. Brian screamed because it hurt so much. His skin scraped against the rocks. Every inch was painful. Inch by inch, Brian's mother pulled him out. It took a very long time. Finally, Brian's body came free from the tight spot. When Brian got outside, he collapsed on the grass. He was breathing hard. Brian's body got better in a few days. Wind Cave Incident. Rachel Cox was a college student who had been exploring Wind Cave National Park in South Dakota. Rachel and her classmates were learning about caves with their instructors. On this day, they were doing a practice search and rescue exercise. The students split into teams to find their instructors who were hiding in different parts of the cave. It was like a game of hide and seek, but in a real cave. Rachel thought she heard her instructor laughing from a nearby passage. They left their backpacks behind and crawled through a narrow tunnel to investigate. When they reached the spot, no instructor was there. Her teammate was upset with Rachel's decision and decided to go back. Rachel was also frustrated and paused for a moment before getting ready to follow him. That's when her lamp suddenly went out. In the complete darkness, Rachel realized she had made a big mistake by not checking her lamp's battery. Following what she had been taught, she decided to stay where she was and wait for help. But as time passed, she got impatient and decided to try crawling back through the tunnel. She felt around for the opening, squeezed through, and found herself in the wrong passage. Now she was even more lost than before. Without her backpack or working light, Rachel had no food, water, or warm clothes. She forced herself to keep moving to stay warm. She made as much noise as she could to help rescuers find her. Meanwhile, her classmates and instructors were searching the area where she had disappeared. Rachel tried to find her way back to where she got lost, but instead, she went deeper into the cave. As hours passed in the cold darkness, she got very hungry and thirsty. Her stomach hurt, and she felt weak and confused. The lack of food and water made Rachel's mind play tricks on her. She wasn't sure if the strange noises around her were real or just in her imagination. She began to hear whispers in the silence, like the cave was alive and talking to her. Time didn't seem to make sense anymore, and when the search went on with no sign of Rachel, the instructors called the park rangers. The National Park Service quickly brought in more cave experts. After about 30 hours of searching, the team looked in more remote parts of the cave. Finally, one of the rescuers heard Rachel calling for help. Rachel remembered seeing a light approaching, and then a man with a beard asking, "Rachel, are you ready to leave now?" She was so confused and tired that she replied, "Are you God?" It took another 2 hours to get Rachel out of the cave. She was weak, dehydrated, and mildly hypothermic, but she didn't have any serious injuries. Huccacove Cave Incident. On April 26, 1982, 21-year-old James May and his friends planned to explore Huccacove Cave in Colorado. James thought it would be easy. As they went deeper into Huccacove Cave, James and his friends got into a big argument. Maybe it was the stress of being in the narrow, cold, damp cave that made everyone upset. James got very angry and told his friends, "Leave me, I'll find my own way out." And that's exactly what his friends did. They were tired of James's outbursts, so they took him at his word and left. Maybe they thought he would follow them later, or maybe they thought being alone in the dark cave would teach him a lesson. But they left him there. Now James was alone deep inside the earth. At first, James enjoyed being alone. He moved forward, going deeper into the cave. His pride kept him from being scared at first. Hours passed. His friends were long gone, and the way out, which had seemed so simple before, was now impossible to find. He tried one passage, but it only led deeper into the cave. He turned back and tried another route, but that was a dead end too. James's confidence began to disappear. The cave was much bigger than he had thought, and now he was completely lost. James's throat was dry and his stomach hurt from hunger. The light from his flashlight seemed dimmer now. He sat down on a wet rock, pulled his knees to his chest, and started to panic. While James was struggling in the darkness, his friends didn't realize how much danger he was in. When he didn't show up on Sunday, they went back into the cave. They saw his headlamp in the distance. They thought he was fine and just being stubborn. Night came and went, though in the cave he couldn't tell time. James's flashlight died. He was alone in complete darkness. He couldn't keep out the freezing cold of the deep cave. James was shivering and couldn't stop. His body temperature was dropping every minute. In desperation, James tried to make a fire. He burned everything he had. It wasn't until James's mother got worried about her son's disappearance that she called the El Paso Sheriff's Department. By Sunday night, rescuers started a search. Despite searching for 5 hours, they couldn't find any sign of James. On Monday around noon, hope came in the form of Barney Foster, someone who knew Huccacove Cave better than most people. He decided to look for James himself. While the rescue team was thinking about giving up, Foster wasn't willing to let the young man die in that cave. Foster went through the cave's narrowest passages. In a particularly tight space, he found the ash, the first sign of James. He kept going deeper into the cave. Then in a small room filled with large broken rocks, he heard it, a cough. James May was lying there on the cold stone floor and his body was covered in bruises and cuts. Foster gave him water. Slowly and carefully, they made their way out of the cave. James had survived 54 hours lost in the cave. James was rushed to the hospital in critical condition. He was suffering from severe dehydration, hypothermia, and exhaustion. He was spending weeks recovering. Lost Creek Cave Incident. On March 12, 2016, 4 best friends from high school decided to explore Lost Creek Cave in Tennessee. The group consisted of Jake Martinez, his girlfriend Chloe Thompson, Jake's best friend Alex Chen, and Alex's younger sister Maya. Maya had found information about Lost Creek Cave online and convinced the others it would be the perfect adventure. They told their parents they were going hiking for the day but didn't mention they planned to go deep into a cave system. Lost Creek Cave had a large entrance that looked inviting. The first part of the cave was easy to walk through with a wide passage and a small stream running along the floor. "This is awesome," Chloe said, as their lights revealed beautiful rock formations on the walls. For the first 30 minutes, everything was perfect. They followed the main passage. The temperature was cool but comfortable. About half a mile into the cave, they reached a place where the passage split into 3 different tunnels. Alex looked at his map, but the image was blurry and hard to read in the cave lighting. "I think we should go right," Alex said, studying the map. "That looks like it leads to the crystal chamber that Maya read about online." Maya was eager to find the famous crystal chamber with its sparkling formations. They took the right passage, which immediately became much narrower and more difficult to navigate. After 45 minutes of difficult travel, they emerged into a large chamber filled with amazing crystal formations. When they were ready to head back, they faced their first real problem. They saw 4 different openings leading out of the crystal chamber. In their excitement, they hadn't paid attention to which one they had entered through. After debating and trying different passages for over an hour, they had to admit the truth. They were lost. As their fear grew, the friends made poor decisions. They kept searching for the exit, leading them even further from the main cave system. Maya had a panic attack in a tight crawlway, and Alex slipped on wet rocks, badly spraining his ankle. They spent a miserable night underground, cold, hungry, and scared. Maya couldn't stop shivering, and Alex's ankle swelled badly. At 8:30 a.m., after 18 hours underground, the friends heard voices calling their names echoing through the cave passages. It took 45 minutes for rescuers to reach them because they were so far from the main cave system. When the rescuers arrived with warm blankets and food, Maya broke down crying with relief. The rescue took 3 hours because the friends had gotten themselves so deep into difficult passages. When they finally emerged into daylight, all 4 sets of parents were waiting with tears, hugs, and serious conversations about honesty and safety.